Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Walk on Wednesday. Walk on Wednesday is when we invite someone we like for a few minutes to talk to them. They're part of our community. Give them a little welcome, introduce them. Now, this is a guy back in the days of Super Soul Sacred Sangha, he was always in the mix. So we decided we got to get Bhakta Louie back here. Bhakta Louie, welcome to the show. He's been listening to the show pretty much every day before Wisdom of the Sages when we were the Super Soul Sacred Sangha. And he is our inspirational master. He is from the old school hardcore scene from a band called Antidote. He was the singer, and he was like, if you know from the hardcore scene, Antidote was like a sort of, in one sense, you guys were a little obscure, but very influential, and put out one of the best records of all time for the fans. Welcome to the show, Louie.
Thank you so much. Please accept my most humble obeisances. Hare Krishna. All glories to His divine grace. A.C. Bhakti-yogi Srila Prabhupada. Good morning, folks.
Good morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
You always wonder what those dogs in the bed are doing. Those are the Bhakti-yoga dogs. If you're watching on Zoom, you see there's always one little box that has these dogs on a bed. And they're Louie's dogs. They listen to the sacred sound every day.
I met one of them the other day.
Yeah, doing Harinam, right? When I met Boris, you had the opportunity. I brought Boris with me. They are my service animals. They're getting old. And at this point, I'm just trying to meet my obligation and my commitment to them that I decided. Yeah, well, let them hear a little Bhagavatam, try to feed them some Prashadam, hopefully avoid any more of this cycle of birth and death for them, and hopefully allow them to attain a human body and maybe be fortunate enough to become devotees.
I think they're well on their way.
I think they're already devotees. They serve you all the time. You're completely devoted. And that's the whole trick of this whole bhakti thing. We're not trying to be great devotees. We're trying to serve great devotees. That's how we become great devotees.
Well, you had somebody on the other day that's also a very good friend of all of us. And she goes back Jiva? Also. Miss Jiva, yeah.
Gwen,
and she was mentioning one thing that she just kept repeating. And it's so important to save, right? Service. Mm-hmm. It's all about service. Service. Keeping the mind engaged in some sort of service, right?
Well, just before we came on the show, you were glorifying Mara, right? Mara wasn't there yet, but we were talking about you, Mara.
You were talking about you, Mara.
I don't deserve anything.
She was eavesdropping. I think she heard a bit of that conversation.
Yeah, but we'd say Mara I think this is the 394th show that we have today.
Yeah, that's right.
And so far, Mare has made every single one.
gonna break my streak.
Yeah, but that's a good streak. I'm pretty
Yes.
impressed.
And getting back to what I just said, savor, savor, savor. This girl right here is a very good example of what that kind of means, what the definition of that is. And so
For sure.
good for you, Mel. Good for you.
Thank
So
you.
Louis, Louis was like kind of like just a little bit older than like when Raghunath and I got into hardcore back in the early '80s. Like Louis was just like kind of like one of the senior guys on that scene. Like
Just senior hardcore guy.
yeah, he went back like to like the real punk rock days, and you worked at like the Mud Club and all these kind of. Did you work at Max's or the? I know you
I
worked
worked at the first place I worked at was a place called Tier 3, which
Right.
was on West Broadway, just below Canal. Just a
Did that
block.
become like the Reggae Lounge or something?
No, that was, I was going to say, it was like a block below the Reggae Lounge.
Okay.
And then it was on White Street, but here's the parallels with the Mud Club. It was literally right around the corner, 2 blocks down across Broadway on White Street was the Mud Club.
The Mud Club.
Right.
So we kind of looked up, guys like Raghunath and I kind of looked up to people like Louis. They're kind of like, already deep into that scene. But the real game changer was that when Bhakti-yogi somehow entered into that scene, Louis' band was the first band to really put out a record. Even most New York bands weren't even putting out records, but Louis' band Antidote put out a record that for the first time Prabhupada's teachings were coming through, were coming through that record, and that influenced a lot of people. That's where the teachings of Bhakti got a little foothold in that hardcore
I
scene.
think that's that single was attributed. I've heard the term said first glimpses of Krishna on the hardcore scene,
That's
right?
what it was. Yeah. Yep. So that's what it was for us.
Because of the cover, right? They had the Law of Karma cover on there.
Yeah.
If you're unfamiliar with that, that's the guy cutting the head off of a cow, but the human has a cow's
Cow has
head,
a human head, and the human has a cow's
and the
head.
cow has a human's face
Yeah.
looking in desperation, and it represents the law of karma, and it was taken illegally from one of Prabhupada's books.
No, legally, right?
Actually, yeah, we actually asked permission from the temple president at the time, which was Lakshmi Prabhu.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
We took our stuff illegally.
What we forgot to do was tribute the BBT, right?
Oh, on the record itself.
Right. Well, that's the only thing we forgot to do. Was
Okay.
Thank the BB. Thank them for
You can
letting
thank
us
them now.
borrow that panel, right?
Little did the BBT understand that was such a
It's a spark that set off a
spark
big fire.
that lit everybody's heart on fire.
Well, here's the thing that, like, for me, it really, kind of rocked kind of like our world at that time is that it linked to a lot of firsts. Like, we were able to talk to the temple president and allow us to get the permits to do the first rock against Maya
I remember
inside of Thompson Square Park.
Band shell. When they had the band shell. Oh, no, Louis frozen up on us.
Louis froze. Rock Against Maya. I never heard of that.
You never heard of that? Oh, yeah, that was like there's some old photographs of that. Like, oh, here, he's going over to the Bhakti-yogi dogs.
He's going to the Bhakti-yogi dogs.
I can see him crossing over there. But yeah, that was like a benefit, some kind of benefit for the devotees that was done with like a whole big lineup. Everybody played that thing at the band shell in Tompkins.
That is so
Tompkins
funny.
Square Park. Okay, here he's tuning in on the Bhakti-yogi dogs now. He's coming back.
I think he's coming back.
We can barely hear you though. You gotta get
Can't
close to
hear
that
you,
mic.
Louis. He just wants to sit with the dogs. Maybe he just
Maybe the dogs are the ones that froze him up so that he would come over.
Can you hear me now?
not really.
Sorta.
Not really.
Mm.
My bad, guys. Let me point this camera more at me here.
That's a little better.
My bad. My laptop, like, I forgot to have it plugged in, and she went down on me.
Oh no. Okay.
I want it.
Well,
Right.
when you stay real close, that's better. Stay real close, up close and personal.
Right here. Where were we?
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, you've been one of the most regular, loyal listeners. You know, like as Raghu was saying, like, you know, over a year ago we started Wisdom of the Sages, but before that it was called the Super Soul Sacred Sangha. Almost a year before that, and you've been practically from the beginning. My question, Louis, what keeps you tuning in every day? What is hearing Bhagavatam, hearing Wisdom of the Sages do for your own life?
Okay, for me personally, I think we spoke about this the other day in the park. You guys have been talking about a lot of things that have a lot of parallels in my life. You guys are like every morning or every other morning, you guys are talking about things that are very like parallel with the things that are happening with me directly sometimes. And I can only just attribute that to the fact that Krishna's allowing me to have the association of the Bhagavatam every morning, and just, you know, just finding a way to like humble me somewhat, which is what I need, right? I need to be humbled. And you guys were mentioning the other day about we have to find, especially you, Kaustubha, you're always kind of refining these little things, and I love that about you. How you saying we have to find a way no matter what, especially in the people we find the most difficult things to find, and that is we have to find a way to see God in everyone and everything, right? Especially the things that are most difficult for us to see God in, right? Sometimes it's difficult for us to find God in certain things, in certain situations, certain individuals for whatever reasons, right?
Yeah.
So the
That
other
daily.
day I had this little personal experience because we all wonder sometimes, how can we have some intimacy with Krishna other than chanting his holy name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chanting the holy name, that's a good one. But there are other ways to experience some of his intimacy. So I had a really kind of revealing experience the other day before you arrived at Harinam. I was sitting there eating Prashadam, and Kalia was telling me that a very good way to have an intimate relationship is by eating Krishna's Prashadam.
That's right.
Right? Because you are in a way having a very intimate relationship with him by consuming something that he has blessed, right, with his eyes, right?
Oh man, what you're saying is going to totally tie into what our verses that we're reading today.
Always happens that way.
See what I'm talking about here, guys?
Yeah.
Like, all right.
Connections.
All right. So at that point, as I'm sitting there, before you get there, I'm having that intimate moment, that intimacy with Krishna, and I'm looking at everything around me. And now, mind you, I'm in Washington Square Park at the time. There are thousands, and literally thousands, because it's a beautiful day out, right? Thousands of people just all over the place. So I started seeing everything as God. And it was a lot easier to do that as I was sharing that moment with Krishna.
Beautiful. Kalia is one of my favorite guys too. I love that guy. Old friend.
So when you got there, it was like, well, I was kind of like fired up for the Harinam and chanting the holy name. And I just had to share that with you. I was like, you guys, and then you, of course, you were like being the super fantastic human being. It's so, you know, so fortunate of me to have the association with, and I was reminding you of that. Like, you know, I'm a fortunate person to have people like you and Raghu in my life, have Ram Roy in my life, you know, the association of these very, very staunch, what I refer to staunch individuals in this movement. Okay. And I'm still like, you know, the less fortunate one sometimes in that situation, right? Because I'm sitting here still struggling, and Maya still, you know, having to like trust through the material illusion constantly, and being tested constantly. But because that's what the material illusion brings.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we love that you're here every day. You inspire us, and it's just I love how you bring Bhagavatam into your life every day, make it come alive. Right? We hear it in the morning, and then it's applied during the day, and I see you doing that.
Yeah. And you know what?
Thanks, Louie. You're an inspiration.
Thank you guys for being, you know, the staunch individuals that you guys are. Like I said, the first time I realized what was going on at 5 a.m, I should have known better. I was like on Instagram and I saw Raghu. I was following Raghu already, and all of a sudden, like every morning, I saw him popping up like on his Instagram live. I'm like, well, what's he doing? Sure enough, I opened it up, boink, Bhagavatam at 5 in the morning.
You got hooked.
Yeah, I was like, well, I should have known better. I mean, he's a devotee. What the hell else is he going to be doing at 5 in the morning? Like chasing demons? I don't think so. Right. You know what I mean? With some people at 5 in the morning, unfortunately, are.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Louie.
I appreciate you. I love you guys, man. So,
love you too.
Haribo. We got to bring that back, the Instagram thing. Really, so many people funneled in from Instagram. We used to shoot that Instagram live.
Mara, we need you for that.
We should do it.
All right, we'll figure it out.
He did bring up this really good point, which is having a type of service, a regular service in your life that you feel connected with. Yeah. Sometimes there's a temple in your community, and sometimes there's not. And you got to figure out. Like, what is my contribution on a regular basis? And we all, for us, we get to do this. It's our accountability. We get to show up on a regular basis. Mara's got so much stuff we throw on her on a regular basis. She's forced to do. And it's great to wake up with the service. So if you don't have one, you should figure out like what can you do regularly to help you like contribute. And it's from that service, because he used this word mission, or it's our movement. The idea is that there's great masters that went ahead of us, and their desire is that this be broken open and given away to literally save people from a dark place. The world can be a very, very dark place, and a lot of us have been in that dark place. So by connecting with some type of like regular service like that, then it becomes very, very you start to please these great souls, these previous masters. And it's by pleasing the previous masters. You know the verse, Kaustubha?
I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
I'm moving towards the verse. Syan Mahat Sevaya Vipra.
Yeah.
That it's like you actually get a taste for chanting and hearing by serving great souls. It's hard to chant. Ever just try to chant on beads? It's like your mind is all over the place.
Yeah.
But by rendering some type of service, you develop an affinity for it. And
that's such an important point. It's like if you talk to people about meditation, they may not bring up this point, but right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, which is the conclusion of all the yoga teachings, it says that if you want to learn, if you want to be able to meditate, if you want to be able to absorb your mind deeply, serve great souls. You get the blessing to be able to do it. Otherwise, mine's practically impossible to deal with, isn't it?
Practically impossible.
Yeah.
And we were saying yesterday, we had a really sweet baby Krishna last night. But we're saying how this process, in one sense, it's very easy. In another sense, incredibly difficult. Like, what is the difficulty of it? We're cooking and we're meditating while we're cooking, or we're singing, or we're what else do we do? Bring some incense. We read some funny stories, stuff like that. Well, like, how could that change me? That starts to go inside you and starts to like. You ever see like a rope, and like, not even a rope, like my headphones every day get tied like in a knot because I never wrap them up. So it's undoing like the headphones, your earbuds, or a knot, like a granny knot in a piece of rope, and you just can't untie. The holy name, the practice of bhakti, how simple it is. It starts to untie the knots of the mind, the knots of the consciousness. It starts to, of the heart. It starts to surface all of our bad qualities so we can examine them and then do away with them. It's very, very powerful, and it's all real. It's all real. All this stuff they promise in the Bhagavatam, it all happens. It may not happen as fast as we want it, but everybody, and Louie was saying, everybody gets these type of tests. We go through these tests on a regular basis. He was saying this thing about being humbled, and, like the whole material world is oftentimes they don't want to be humiliated. In bhakti, to get humbled, even though it's like hurts the ego, we feel like, oh, That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm praying for. That's actually a very beautiful thing, to get humbled on a regular basis, and how we react to that getting humbled helps crack the thick shell around my heart. Anyway, I love to see people like him, because Louie, he's just such a steady guy.
He is.
Steady.
You ready, Raghu? We're getting
I'm ready,
deep
man.
in. We got stuff to
Narayanam
get into.
namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. And by regular attendance in the classes in the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Madatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual masters, who have opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with their ointment of knowledge. Srimad Bhagavatam. We're back.
We are. You ready?
Canto 3, Chapter 6, texts.
I think we're on text. We're going to read 2 texts today, at 35 and 36.
I've got some.
All right.
Okay.
Good with that?
Yeah. Wow.
So-
Let's burning through this chapter, Kaustubha.
Well, now we are. Yeah, we are. We heard this description. In this chapter, it's been a description of the Virat Rupa, which you can translate as the universal form of God or Lord Vishnu that's spreading throughout the universe. And again, we hear about different types of universal forms, but this one is like, it's this awareness of God that's spread throughout all of the material world and tying it all together. And so what we heard about yesterday was through the power of that, I suppose you could say, all the devas took on their forms, and they all took on the responsibilities of the various senses that we have. And then through that same energy that's spreading through everywhere, the 3 different planetary systems were established. And through that same energy, the 4 different varnas, the 4 different mindsets and the duties that come with them. So everything was laid out so that the jivas, the souls, us, could enter into that, take on a form, equipped with senses, move throughout the different levels of the universe. And but still the Dharma was provided through the different varnas, right? So that I could take up responsibilities in this world and use it as a path of yoga and eventually free myself from that bondage. And now, this was all being told by the sage Maitreya to the sage Vidura, and now Maitreya is going to speak, having described all that. You ready? You there, Raghu? You seem distant. You're far away from the camera. I don't hear you speaking. What's going on?
I got issues.
Okay, well, try to come back from me, man. Okay. Here's text 30. Or I think we'll read through text 37. Start with text 35. What's going on?
35, Ovadura.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Ovadura. Who can estimate them or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the gigantic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Who can measure it? In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from my spiritual master, and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. For otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions and activities and the glories of the pious actor.
I mean, that's
Such
speaking about
activities are so
Krishna.
nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the ear is being served just by being near them.
Okay.
Oh, my
So-
son, the original
No, no,
poet.
stop there. Okay.
Stop there.
Yeah, but just see what Maitreya has said in these last two verses. In text 36, he described what you're meant to do with the ear, right? How he heard. He said that, and how he speaks. Both of these are being mentioned here. He said because he heard from spiritual masters, right? Because that's how he engaged his ear. He was choosy about how he engaged his ear, right? He didn't just
You
engage
can't
in
just
anything.
engage your ear anyway. Your ears got to be properly engaged.
He was careful.
My ears
about
are
it.
all over the place. You gotta harness that ear and bring it in.
So he said, if I didn't hear right, I wouldn't be able to speak right, right? He says, I'm now describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste. I would be talking about all kind of garbage if I hadn't heard from these spiritual masters. And then in text 37, he says, the highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in these discussions about the pious sacrament, meaning about God. He says such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages. They've taken the time, right? They put in the thought and the deep meditation. These sages, they would go into very deep meditation, to go very deep into the mind, very deep into the heart. And having heard from powerful, sources, then they would convey that in these books like Bhagavatam. And he says, so it's been so nicely arranged in the writings of these great learned sages that the actual purpose of the ear is served just by hearing them, right? This is what the ear is meant for. This is how it's engaged well, how it's engaged right, You know what I hear people talk about a lot in like yoga circles? How the body, and not just yoga, but like religious circles, I guess you'd say, because it goes way back, but like that the body's like a temple.
Body's a temple.
Right.
Yeah, keep the temple clean.
Yeah, or the body's an altar. Yeah, you want it's a place. It's something that you want to keep very pure, right?
Sure.
And so like, how do we really? Like, I think it's a nice idea. I think when people hear that, my body is a temple. My body. Think of it like that. Think of it. It's not that we reject the body. Although there's a lot about renunciation mentioned in yoga texts, and there's a lot of warnings about being too caught up in the body.
Yeah.
But there's a lot about seeing the body as a temple, and this is how one does that, right? It's about, just as a temple is that place, like, a temple is a place where there's extra focus, right? Extra focus to keep this place sacred, right? And, keep it clean, keep it pure. We're not going to discuss dumb things when we go there. That's where we're on our best, right? That's where we kind of bring our best selves.
Yeah.
And so if we want to see the body as a temple, then that means let's be very careful about what we hear. Let's be very careful about how we speak. And so that's what Maitreya Muni is, speaking about here,
It's hard work.
It is hard work.
It's hard work.
What inspires you to do that work, Raghunath?
What inspires me?
Yeah. You sound a little quiet. I think you gotta get closer
I
to
think
that
you
mic.
sound quiet. Are we both
Okay.
quiet?
Well, you sound quiet.
You're more quiet.
You're the quiet one.
No, yeah.
There you go.
What inspiration comes from associating with people that are inspired.
Mhm.
That's how I get inspired. Yesterday, reading Krishna book with all the patron party, that was very inspirational for me. I
Mhm.
went to bed going, man, that is so important. I can't believe I'm not doing this every day. It's really great to wind down with Krishna's pastimes. So I think hearing Krishna's Leela gets inspirational. And even the ones, not just all the sweet baby ones we did when Krishna was older yesterday. We did.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that was allowed. I didn't know your enthusiasm went that direction.
Sometimes it does. This was a Krishna fighting Kalyavana, kidnapping Rukmini. The story of Muchakunda. Great
Wow,
stuff.
you covered a lot of ground.
Covered a lot of ground. Mara wasn't there. I don't know where Mara was.
Sorry.
Mayor's like, get used to it, guy. I'm hitting the road.
I'm independent now. I don't need you guys. Going to San Diego.
Well, you know, Raghu, there's a bird that is spoken of in the yoga literature.
Chakora bird, right?
Not the chakora. It's not the chakora that I'm speaking of.
Subsists on moonlight.
That's the no. Well, I'm speaking of the chataka.
Chataka.
Yeah, the chataka bird. And this bird is often quoted in spiritual circles in like kind of like a Indian poetry, like ancient Indian devotional poetry. Right? They speak of this bird, the
What's
chataka
it famous
bird.
for? What's the analogy?
This bird is famous because it's said that this bird, it will not drink any water that's like on the ground or like a lake or a puddle.
Oh, yeah.
or
It subsists on rainwater.
it looks up to the sky and it will wait and wait, and its standard is so high. It's exclusively will only drink water that's falling as rainwater from the sky and will not touch anything else. Okay, and so that's given as an example of, you know, that internal feeling that one has that my body, my mind, my words, I only want them to be related to God. I only want them to be engaged in service of God. Nothing else, right? Nothing else. It's a beautiful metaphor, I think, you know, that again, you find it in that poetry of the great devotees of God, and they're just like, I don't want anything but you, and I won't accept anything but you.
It's in the last verse of Vibhavarishesha, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's the chakora. I don't know if the chakora is the same
I
thing.
think the chakora sometimes.
Mara,
Chakora subsists.
could you just see the chakora?
Difference
is
between the
mentioned that way?
chataka bird and the chakora bird.
I'll look it up.
Chakora, chakora.
We give her transcendental missions.
Yeah, I looked up the
Transcendental
chataka
research.
bird, and what it is. It has people say that the chataka bird of the ancient Indian poetry. Sometimes they say it is the Jacobin cuckoo. And
you know, I tell you, it's great to learn the Western names of these birds and these plants.
yeah, right. I thought you might like that, but some actually associate it with the common iora. Some do that too, Raghunath.
Mary's like, what are you guys talking about? What are you guys talking-
That's what they say the chataka bird is. It's one of these two birds. People have a disagreement about that.
Well, there's a chastity, just like
Chastity,
when you're on a strict diet, you don't eat gluten or you don't eat, you're a vegan. There is like a chastity, and there's a chastity of your tongue. There's a chastity of our hearing, of what I will allow myself to hear. I mean, I know sometimes you're in a conversation with someone like, I just don't want to hear this. I just want to put this, it's just like noisy for my mind.
Yeah.
Or, you know what can be like that all the time is the news. The news is just so painful to listen to. No one walks away feeling good after listening to the news. And people say, well, you know, you got to educate yourself. I don't know. Are you really educated?
I like to educate myself, right? I do like to. I do
don't
like
think
to
it's
know what's going
educating.
on in the world.
I don't think it's educating, truthfully. I think
Well,
it's just
there's
sort of
certain things I could
filtered
speak on that I wouldn't be.
information and somebody's narrative of what's
Well,
going
let's
on.
go. Let's say this. One
I'd rather
certainly.
hear the news on me. The news, like,
Oh, you want it to be all about you?
How can I improve my life? What can I do to make my life better instead of hearing, you know, the different dramas that go on?
Well, I don't. I can
I like to
appreciate.
hear the chat board thing talk about that. But
I
go
can
on, Christina.
appreciate the focus. I don't. But I'm not going to go out and say that if you ever listen to news, you're really off, or boy, you're really not getting it. I do think that especially nowadays, people get so caught up in it, it's ridiculous, and it is. You know, it can become very, you know, polluting to the mind, right?
Yeah.
I can barely hear you, Rogo. You got it.
I don't know. I usually have a pretty
There
big
you go.
mouth.
I don't know what's going on, but you know, that bird, you know, how that example plays across, you know, a yogi's life, particularly a bhakti yogi's life. It's really profound. Just like Louie was talking about taking prasadam, right? Like that devotees say, just like the bird, right? I don't want to eat any food, just any food. I refuse to eat just any food. I'll only eat the food that with devotion has been offered to God. Right?
I mean, that's a real thing. There's kings of ancient India, not even ancient India, medieval India, that the kings would only take prasad There was the king of Jaipur who he would not eat unless it was offered to Krishna. He would only when he traveled and went on expeditions, even when he went to London,
Oh yeah.
he would only drink water from the Ganges. He would only bathe in water from the Ganges.
Yeah.
Imagine this: only
Well,
bathe in water in the Ganges.
I know how
And
you
he'd
know
only
that.
cook with water from the Ganga.
I know how you know that.
Huh?
I know how you know that.
How?
Because in Jaipur, in the palace in Jaipur, they have these two massive silver, like, what do you call it? Like a pots, I guess.
Lotus.
Lotus kind of, yeah. That I guess he went to England by ship, and in these two massive pots, he brought Ganges water, right?
Yeah, solid silver,
It's
like
crazy.
cups, like drinking cups, like an Indian drinking cup, but gigantic, that
Yeah.
he'd fill with Ganga water, and he'd bring them on the ship. That's a high standard.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
I'll only
I mean,
drink
I guess when
Ganges
you're a
water.
king, you can pull that kind of thing off.
Well, that's real opulence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll only bathe with Ganges water.
Yeah. But that's it. But so, okay, I'm only going to eat. This is, there's that verse. What is it? Sarvapati vinir muktam tatparat vena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate. Right? That sevanam bhaktir uchate, how does one serve, in the course of, practicing bhakti? Hrishikena hrishikesha. Which one's first? Hrishikena hrishikesha.
Rishikesh.
That one
I don't know
engages
that
this. That one engages the senses in the service of the master of the senses. In other words, my body, my senses belong to God. This is the way the deep yogi thinks, right? It's not mine. I didn't create it. It's been created for me. It's a vehicle that I'm using. But I plug in every input device in connection with God. My eyes, my ears, my words. It's all plugged in. So it says that sarvo pati vinir muktam taparat vena nirmalam, that if one takes their senses, this is the practical way it's done. Take your senses, connect them with God in every way. What I eat, here it's being saying how I speak. My Trey is saying, if I didn't plug my ears in the right way, the purpose of the ears is to hear these stories that the sages have, with great care and love and realization, have written down in these books. If I didn't hear them, then I wouldn't know how to engage my ear, and I also wouldn't be able to speak well, to engage my speech properly. But when one does that, then sarvopati vinir muktam, the upadis, all of these, sarva means all, and upadi means the false identification, right?
All your upadis.
Yeah. Vinir muktam, I become liberated from them, right? I become free of them all. It's so hard to give up. We've been speaking in some of the days previous to this about how that identification with the body sets in, how it's so hard not to, when we are locked in this material world, it's very few people have a very deep understanding how this body is just a vehicle. I'm the spark of spiritual life within it. That same spark is there in every living being. We get locked into patterns of thought of who I am and what I am, and then based on that, judging everyone else in a state of illusion rather than seeing the reality. But how does one get out of that? How does one break all the false designations that our mind has adapted? That Rishikena Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate, that through the yoga of engaging the senses carefully, reconnecting the senses to devotional service across the board. Again, it's described with these three. With my body, and they're three in increasing levels of subtlety. With my body, with my words, with my mind. Let me dedicate each one of those to God's service, right?
It's where we get, it's, a lot of us go to the city Rishikesh. That's what it's about. He's the Lord of our senses.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm controlling my senses. That's like a different concept. Like it makes you feel like I am the master. I am the controlling my tongue and my eyes and my ears. And it's not that way in Bhakti. It's I take the senses and I give them back to the proprietor of the senses.
Yeah.
And there's an immediate internal feeling. You'll feel changed. And that's what we do. That's why, and it's really easy nowadays. We make it. The information age has made it really easy. You know, I go for bike rides every day or a run or something, and you just have an iPhone and you're just hearing transcendental sound. It doesn't get more easier than this. You go on YouTube and you hear lectures, or you go on to Audible and listen to audiobooks, or listen to Wisdom of the Sages, or anywhere you can hear the Bhagavatam or transcendental sounds, and you fill your downtime with what I would normally put insanity in my downtime, just insane noise, stuff like that.
You are like
stuff
the
you
chataka
scroll
bird.
through.
You are like that bird, Raghunath.
I'm like, did Mara ever decide what bird it was?
No, yeah, Mara. Any word on the chakora?
Any word on the bird, Mara?
I think they're two different birds. That's far. The chataka bird is a pied-crested cuckoo.
Yeah, pied-crested
cuckoo.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Pied-crested cuckoo.
And the chakora?
A little tougher to find,
Yeah.
but something in the crow raven type background.
Manasa Chandra Chakora, right? My mind is like the moon and the chakora bird. What's the how does that? What does that line mean again, Raghunath?
Manasa Chandra Chakora. My mind is like the chakora bird. It only wants to it only wants like the moonlight. I don't know. I'm not a
gotta
poet.
figure that line out.
I'm not a Vedic poet.
So
I still don't even understand lotus feet. I don't quite even understand. Really. Everything's lotus, lotus eyes, lotus everything, lotus navel. I still don't get that much. I mean,
Maybe America. Maybe you can get us the translation of that line, Manasa Chandra Chakora from Viva Varishesha. That song, beautiful song. Oh man,
some of those analogies just don't translate. You know,
well, you got to know. You got to know what's going on, right?
Well, if I said, if someone came up to me and say, "Hey, Raghunath, your face is moon-like," I was like, "What the hell are you talking about, moon-like? Think I got a big moon head?" But we say so. We say people's faces are, Krishna Chandra. He has a beautiful face like a moon. That would be like an insult. You know what's also the most funny one in India, even today, to tell a woman she is like a cow is a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
You are like a cow. Try that. Try that one.
Try that one in the West. Won't go over so well.
Well, the cows are very soft and beautiful, and
Well, they give so much, you know.
and they give.
They give so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Mara, for that.
Yeah, so I did find out the mythical chakora bird is believed to live on moonlight and eat nothing else. So Chandra Chakora is often a metaphor for attraction, sustenance, and an inseparable relationship, most applicable to God and the devotee.
Okay. You see, this is just like modern sports teams or things like that. They get like their logo or their mascot is like some bird or something like that, right? And you can derive a little into like a falcon or something like that, right?
Well,
or
do you
even
have
the
a picture of
United
that
States.
chakora bird?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We should picture that. That should be our bird. You know, like we should think of that bird. Like we should get a T-shirt with that bird on it or something like that. You know?
The chakora bird.
Yeah. That we keep that focus.
All right. Are we done with this chapter?
No, we're not. Why? You want to move
Finish
on?
this up.
Why,
It'd be great to just close the chapter.
why do you want to close the chapter? There's a whole other beautiful messages.
I'm in
there,
a
but-
rush. I'm trying to finish the Bhagavatam. Come on,
No,
let's
you
move
don't
it.
need to. Why don't we dip into a little bit of the commentary here, okay? This is from the commentary to 36.
When will I just chill out and take a break? Why
chill
must
out,
I
Raghunath.
rush through my journey home?
I think the fact that Mara's leaving has got you like nervous and jittery or something like
Maybe
that. You're
that's
like,
it. Maybe that's it.
yeah, just
Well,
relax.
Jerry, well,
She's gonna come back. It's
I
okay.
just want to share. I really think she's like a cow.
She is in the positive sense. She is absolutely.
Most positive. There's only positive.
Briggs.
Very cow-like.
Thank you, guys. She is.
Okay.
Oh, this is from the commentary. This Prabhupada says, one must attempt to engage one's bodily, mental, and verbal activities in the transcendental glorification of the Lord. Otherwise, such activities will remain unchaste and impure. It sounds a little puritanical there,
Sounds a little puritanical.
but just try to see it in
Unchaste
terms
and
of yoga.
impure.
Yeah, just try to see it in terms of yoga. The existence, it's tied into more thing like, oh, the body's a temple, right? You got to keep you keep it sanctified, you keep it pure. So my body should remain engaged in a way that's pure and positive spiritual activity. My verbal, my words, that's a little harder. First is engage the body, then engage the words, and ultimately the mind. Right?
It's truthfully, it's so simple. It's such a better way to look at it, because once you start thinking the body of the self, then all the healthy things you do, the working out, the cleansing, the special diet, it just becomes more and more Maya. Whereas if you say the body is my temple, then the working out or the cleansing, etc., it gets you less into the ego, the body is myself, and gets you more into this is a home for the spirit. It's a gift of material nature, and therefore I'm going to take care of this gift. It's a completely different mindset.
So true. It's the bird. Think like
Continue, chakora. I'm going to call you chakora.
I'm going to call you chataka.
Chataka G.
I'm going to call you a cow. The existence of the conditioned soul can be purified only by the method of engaging the mind and speech in the service of the Lord. The Tridandi sannyasi, right? Tridandi. What does Tridandi mean, Raghu?
Mara,
I should bounce that one.
I'm going to bounce that one right to you.
Do you know Tridandi, Mara?
3 sticks.
That's right. Yeah, 3 sticks.
So it's like the staff that the sannyasis carry. Is that correct?
There's 2 different types of sannyasis. One carries a single staff, and one carries the 3 staffs. So that's right, the Tridandi. The Tridandi sannyasi of the Vaishnava school, and this is the Bhakti-yogis, they accept 3 rods representing the vow to engage in the service of the Lord with body, mind, and speech. All right? Whereas the Ekadandi sannyasi takes the vow to become one with the Supreme.
Isn't that crazy? They got to carry those rods with them wherever they go.
I remember you said when you first saw Ramapad Swami down on the Lower East Side, and he was carrying a rod.
Walking around with that rod. What the hell?
Was he a shepherd? What's going on?
This thing? It looks, it looks like a shepherd.
That's
like
what I remember
those
you
old
saying.
school shepherds with the, come on sheep, let's go.
That was your
That's what they're
Catholic
doing.
upbringing.
They're shepherding in the lost souls.
But the idea was that they would carry those 3 rods to always have that reminder. We need to remind ourselves in different ways. So the sannyasi,
it's one thing to wear a bracelet, but to carry a giant 6-foot pole around with you wherever you go.
It's even stronger that way, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they would do.
If you actually think about that, it's quite an austerity just to have that pole around.
It is. So since the Lord is absolute, there's no distinction between, this is something that's hard to wrap the mind around, but you got to you really got to expand the mind to really accommodate. You could just hear this and say, okay, accept that. But to have deep realization on this point is something that takes time and reflection. Since the Lord is absolute, there's no distinction between him and his glories. Right? So in other words, like when you're doing your sweet baby Krishna, the reason why you're feeling so good is because God is manifesting in that conversation, right?
Hopefully.
The glories of the Lord as chanted by the Vaishnava sannyasi are as substantial as the Lord himself. And that's why glorifying the Lord, the devotee becomes one with him in transcendental interest. Right? Not in every sense, but one in transcendental interest, although they remain eternally a transcendental servitor. Thus, simultaneously one and different position of the devotee makes them eternally purified, and thus their life becomes a complete success by how you engage your ear, how you engage your words, right?
Boom.
Okay.
That's all I got to say.
You're
Boom.
a man of few words today, Raghu. You're just
Boom.
Like, this Mara thinks it's just got your. I understand.
Got me an anxiety. What am I going to do?
I understand. It's going to be okay. I guarantee you. She'll come back.
We'll see.
394. Now you're just running off, though. How can you do that?
Maybe we should take a break if she's taking a break.
I was thinking we should take Monday off because I heard you're doing a program on Sunday night.
Yeah.
And I am
a program in New Paltz. I'm part of another. I'm part of a program. It's not my. It's not the Raghu show. I'm part of it. I'm doing some Lord Chaitanya pastimes and maybe a little singing.
Okay.
Yeah,
and I'm
crew
also
coming
been
down.
asked to speak at the Bhakti Center. Because that's Gaur Purnima. We haven't even been talking about it. Look at you. You don't talk to me anymore. You just sit there silently. What's going on?
You don't send me
I'm
flowers.
teeing
Just
you
sitting here subsisting on moonlight.
Okay. You are my moonlight, Raghu. I need you to shine your rays this direction sometimes. But
Okay.
yeah, it's Gaur Purnima this Sunday is, at least in New York, it is. Sometimes it's a little different. It might be the following day in India. But this is Gaur Purnima. It's the birthday of Sri Chaitanya. It's a big holiday.
It's huge. This is huge. It's a great time to. No, we're going to dive in, and I don't know what you're doing Sunday, Mara, at the beach, but it's a great day to read these stories of Lord Chaitanya.
She'll be coming back on that day? Are you on the plane then?
I'm taking a red eye back on Sunday night.
Yeah,
Oh, so you're going to be actually on the show on Sunday?
Well, no, she won't. Oh,
Yeah, Sunday I'll be there. Monday
Sunday
I
you'll
won't
be
be
on
able to
the show.
there because I'll still be
right,
traveling.
right. So Saturday and Sunday we've got you back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're on that plane on that red eye and you see the full moon, that you'll be thinking of Sri Chaitanya, because that's when he appeared on that full moon night.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful moon on Monday.
No, on Sunday.
On Sunday, rather. Sorry.
So you're speaking probably late into the night on Sunday night. Now I got a really busy long day on Sunday too, so I think maybe we take the Monday off.
All right.
That way Mara won't miss that show.
Mara's not going to be there. That way we won't. Okay.
Right.
And then when I
Okay.
go to Nepal, I'm going to Nepal with a bunch of the Zoomers.
You got to figure that out.
Got to
What are
figure
we
out how
doing?
the heck we're going to do this in Nepal. Himalayan mountainside.
Have you
with
even
a
thought
snow
about this?
leopard behind me.
You're gone for 20 days. How are we going to make this show work?
I don't know. We're going to figure it out. We've done crazier things. We've done it like on tour with Shelter. With the whole
That's not
band in a
crazier than
hotel
going to
room.
the mountains in Nepal. That's like
Yeah.
way out there.
We'll figure it out.
You're going to be
You know,
like sitting next to a yak.
Krishna
gonna-
makes it work out somehow.
Okay. I trust you, Raghu. Oh, chakora bird. Shall we read just a little bit more? This is from the commentary of text 37.
Go.
Prabhupada says, a rishi. What is a rishi?
Rishi is a magical being, a
Yeah, I think it
mystical,
means
deep
A
thinker,
seer too, right? Like a seer.
a seer. Yeah, love
A
that word.
rishi like Maitreya is certainly not interested in discussing anything. He's like a chakora bird. He's not interested in discussing anything pertaining to mundane qualities. Yet, he says that the highest perfectional stage of transcendental realization is to discuss the Lord's activities.
Have you ever asked like a swami a dumb question, like, or try to like bring up, just because I'm like a talker? Sometimes I'll go to a swami and I'll just talk, and the swami will just sort of like
Shut
not
you down.
engage with me. No, not even say anything. Just like not answer. They just like they don't want to go there with their words. They're
They're like
like
chakora
a
birds.
harness on their tongue.
Yeah, I'm not interested in those words.
I'm not going to go there. And it's just like, oh, I get it. You're controlling your speech. Sorry, I'm just trying to make pleasant conversation.
And but as Billy Joel said, I don't need clever conversation, Raghu.
He didn't.
Yeah, he
Billy
didn't.
Joel is underrated.
He's a chakora bird.
He is like I sort of miss Billy Joel because of punk, but he's actually great. My whole family listens to him on a regular basis.
Okay.
I'm walking around singing "Don't Go Changing" all the time.
Do you? Well, that's when you're slipping from your chakoraness. I'm gonna bring it back.
You know
right
what?
now.
You know what you can do whenever you have some like material song in your head, you can put Krishna in that song. Like I can think like I'm singing to Krishna. Don't go changing to try to please me. Don't change the color of your hair because I like it black and curly.
All right. So Srila Jiva Goswami therefore concludes that the topics regarding the transcendental activities of the Lord are far beyond the transcendental realization of kaivalya happiness, of the oneness. In other words, the point made here is that if Maitreya Muni is into hearing Krishna's pastimes, it means they're not material, because he's not interested in, he's like a chakora bird, right? These transcendental activities of the Lord are so arranged in writing by the great sages. This is our theme here, right, for Wisdom of the Sages, right? These transcendental activities of the Lord are so arranged in writing by the great sages that simply by hearing of those narrations, one becomes perfectly self-realized, and the proper use of the ear and the tongue is also achieved. Srimad Bhagavatam is one of such great literatures, and the highest perfectional state of life is attained simply by hearing and reciting its contents.
Look, you did that very nicely.
Not bad?
He said something dramatic and then raised the music. Wow, that was good. And you know what?
I can't hear you at all. Get close to that mic.
All right, you know what I'm doing. Just like the Billy Joel song, you can switch it to think about Krishna. You can do that with everything.
Yeah.
You can do that with trees.
Switch it.
Yeah, I switch it. I see a tree. I see a tree that looks like we have a giant tree. I call it the Nisringadev tree. Then I got the Kaliya Krishna tree. Then I got these trees that are sort of wrapped together. I call it the Radha Krishna tree. You can change your whole
You're
environment.
just seeing God everywhere on that esoteric
I'm just seeing
level.
God everywhere. Hey, I got a shout out to Luke Carmen, he sent me a video of his little daughter just sitting down and playing the harmonium and chanting on the harmonium. This is what happens when you get absorbed in your spiritual life. Everybody in your universe, your kids, it affects them. It rolls off on them. So congratulations. You and your wife get the Gold Star Parenting Award with Arian Plord, whose children are picking flowers for Krishna. Thanks everybody for joining us. Tomorrow's Thursday, and we have anything going on with our Patreon community?
Yeah, Trevor Vaughn is offering an asana class at 8 a.m. today, and there's there's a Bhakti recovery group meeting at 1 o'clock.
Bhakti recovery group. We're recovering from the material world. It can really do a number on you. Thanks everybody for joining us. If you want to help out with our Patreon community, do it. It's community supported, and then you can be a part of our little Patreon party. Patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. Any monthly contribution is welcome. Let's go to our Apple podcast and write a review of the show. Tell us about your story. Tell us about your journey on your spiritual path. We want to hear about it. I go through my phone on a regular basis and love reading these. So please, if you haven't done that yet, please do that. Thanks, everybody. Mara, get the dance cam. And Mara, you have a safe trip.
Oh, Mara, this is it.
This is it. She's going to sign off. And then this